Welcome to the Delmarva Almanac and happy Halloween. Each week we connect you to the best of Delmarva. Like other almanacs, our aim is to tell you a little bit about our past, our present, and events in the near future. I'm your host, Dana Kester McCabe. Halloween has its roots in the Festival of Samhain, a Gaelic harvest celebration. In ancient times, it was believed that on October 31st, the boundaries between the worlds of the living and the dead lifted, allowing the dead to come back to take care of unfinished business. To scare away vengeful spirits, bonfires were lit, pumpkins were carved like gargoyles, and people wore scary masks. Telling ghost stories has remained a popular part of the ancient tradition, which helped people face their fears about death and connect them to the lives of those who've gone before us. Here in the U.S. and on Delmarva, those traditions continue. In honor of Halloween, here is storyteller and ghost tour operator Mindie Burgoyne, who has a ghost story about a little girl named Annie Connor, who died here on Delmarva in 1875.
One of my favorite stories is about where I live in Marion, between Westover and Crisfield in Somerset County. It's all rural farmland. There really is no town. But there used to be a town, a little village called Tull's Corner, and it's now just the end of a road with a couple of houses. But near Tull's Corner is a bridge with just the iron, guardrails, and it's known as Crybaby Bridge. So Crybaby Bridge, the lady in white, the hitchhiker, they're everywhere. These ghost stories are in every town. Every book has those three things. And I thought, well, let me hear what this one is. And the story is that fishermen, and people do fish off that bridge all the time, at night, when they're at night, they'll hear what sounds like the sound of a child crying really loud, and then it just stops like a child drowning. It sounds like a child drowning, and they get their lights out and they can't find it. And this was told by Woodrow Wilson, who chronicled a lot of the Somerset County genealogy and history. There was an accident on that bridge, and Woodrow Wilson tells about it. He said there was a lady who was going over the bridge in a horse and buggy. She had her 4-year-old daughter with her, and the horse got spooked by lightning and thunder at the bridge and went over the edge. And so the cart went over, and the woman, it wasn't even that deep, but because of the rain, the water was rushing. And she couldn't get to her child, and the child was swept away. And they didn't find the child for days. Her name was Annie. And it's interesting that right near this Crybaby Bridge is this really haunted house, the Samuel Tull house, and also the St. Paul Cemetery. So all in this little line are these 3 really haunted sites. So I told that story, and a lady on the bus who was from Parksley, Virginia, said, can you find out the name of that child? Because I've heard this story, and I mean to tell you, I think that's my relative. And so I said, okay, I'll go back and I'll look. And I emailed her, and she said, that is my relative. I'll tell you what the story really was. And she said that her family lived right there near the bridge. And they did. They actually lived just, not a mile down the road. And it was a big family, and this woman had a bunch of kids, and this was her littlest, and they were coming back, and that's exactly what happened. The little girl was lost, and they didn't find her for days. And sadly, a couple of years later, one of their sons was killed in a store because he was standing underneath a cart that was elevated because they were working on it, and the cables broke and hit him. So they had a lot of tragedy. And so I thought, wow, I feel like I know this family. So for the next bus tour, I decided I wanted to go back and I wanted to find Annie's grave so that I could say, here's Crybaby Bridge, here's what happened, here's the house they lived in, now we're going to go to the graveyard and I'll show you. And I found her whole family, but I couldn't find her. I couldn't find her anywhere. I thought, where could she be? Of course they would have buried her here because she was the first one to die, and I couldn't find the grave. I was standing out there in frigid weather, like my hands were so cold I could barely hold my pen looking for this grave, and I gave up, and I felt like this Annie, she just follows me, So I finally, on the ghost tour, it wasn't quite as cold. I brought him over to that grave, and it's marked with a big obelisk, and it has the parents' names. They were like 80, and I could see the day that they died. They died a couple days apart from each other. So they must have both been, it's just so, the whole tragedy of this family weighs on me. So I decided that I was going to go around to the back of the obelisk so I could address the people and they could look on at the graves. And when I walked around to the back of the obelisk, I saw the little name Annie. So I could see that she was, in fact, buried there. So anyway, that story, it's very thick. The presence of that child is thick in that area. And the memory is very strong still today. And there's still people around with that, still people around that can retell that story. And it's so Somerset County, because Somerset County is so wide open, and there's just almost no population except these two little pockets on either end. And I went back to write about it, and I picked up the Wilson book to go find the name again, and I just flipped it open, and it opened right to the story about her. And I thought, wow, that's I feel like if I was ever attached to one of the spirits, like I couldn't shake it, like they talk about spirits attaching themselves to you, it would be Annie. I think about her all the time, and she comes up when I drive, and so that's kind of scary.
The author, Woodrow Wilson, that Mindie refers to is not our late U.S. president, but a Somerset County historian. You can find links to information about his books on our website, delmarvaalmanac.com/history. And for information about upcoming ghost walk tours across the peninsula, visit Mindie Burgoyne's website, ChesapeakeGhostWalks.com. Well, that's all for this edition of the Delmarva Almanac. We'd like to thank our community partners, the Friends of Delmarva Public Radio, the Community Foundation of the Eastern Shore, and underwriters EatDrinkBuyArt.com for their help in bringing this program to you, our audience. Our theme music was provided by Brightside Studio. This show has been a Moonshell production. Thanks for listening. Until we meet again, may the rhythms and tides of Delmarva bring you good fortune.